Okay, and if anyone has any issue with recording, we will be posting the recording and sending you all the link to it so that you can access it after the fact. Can I have the next slide, please, Jason? So my name is Salome Gorbani. I am, as Allison noted, the Director of Stakeholder and Outreach Engagement here within the IAE. We are here today to look at the new subaward reporting capability that is going to be going into SAM and what we can do to help get you ready so that when we turn it on in SAM, you've got everything you need to get going. So the next slide, please. So this slide just details the purpose of what we are here to do. And we basically intend this training to be for people who are currently users of FSRS now. And obviously when FSRS moves to SAM, we have to have you set up in SAM so that your work is not interrupted. So this session is particularly going to be focused on how the roles and permissions in SAM work, how that applies to the subaward capability that's coming, so that again, when we do launch, you are ready to go. And we'll also be going through some of the upcoming training sessions that we currently have scheduled and how you can register for those, and then where you can go to get help during the transition and then after the transition. So on the next slide, we are now going to do a quick overview at a high level of what is actually changing. And next slide, please, Jason. I am sure by this point you have heard that changes are coming to FSRS.gov. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be retiring the current system that is FSRS.gov. So anybody who today does subaward reporting or searching on executive compensation data, things like that, and if you do that work, you will be impacted by this change. But what we're going to do is help you get set up in SAM and make sure that you have access to all of your entities. And next slide, please. There were a lot of reasons at this time to retire FSRS, and we have a lot of benefits that we can share just as are noted in this slide in terms of why it's better to have it as part of SAM. The biggest benefit that I can think of, which is specifically for FSRS users, is that right now in FSRS, you need to have a separate email for each entity that you report for. And the good news is in SAM, everything that you do today in FSRS with multiple accounts, everything is going to be managed from your one account in SAM.gov. We are also introducing warnings if there is something that appears incorrect in the data, or if the reporting has already been done and this is a duplicate report, you're going to get notified of that now, so that the data integrity is actually going to be much improved, and the overall workflow and how things work in the user interface, they're going to make it much easier to comply with the regulations. So the next slide, we're kind of setting up here a side-by-side comparison, specifically to functions such as signing in, making awards, or running reports for subaward stuff. And the thing to note on FSRS.gov is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you manage for multiple entities, you've got multiple emails. And basically what that does is it creates a lot of separate accounts for you in login.gov. Now, both systems do use login.gov to manage the login and making sure that you are really you when you come to our systems. But the problem is you've got, you may have 5 or 10 emails that are no longer going to be needed in login.gov. Whereas what you're going to do in SAM is have a single account. If you already have an account, then we can just add on to it. It's not a problem at all. And we are going to highlight the fact that you can only have one SAM account per person. So whereas in FSRS, you were pretty much required to have multiple email addresses or shared accounts, that is not the case in SAM. It is one account per individual, and that one account will be how you get your permissions and roles to be able to do the work with the subaward reports. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. What we want to do first is kind of take a step back, realizing there's a whole lot of people on the call. Some may not be familiar with SAM. Some may be familiar with SAM, but never quite understood how roles and permissions work. So we're going to take a step back, give some foundational information, and then discuss how it directly affects the subaward users. So on the next slide, when you have gone to the SAM.gov homepage, you've seen our references to the word domain. If you've talked to anybody at the FSD or read any of our knowledge articles, we use the word domain quite a bit. And what we mean is that by domain, it is a specific type of data or a functional area. So for example, if we talk about the contract data domain, that is all the contract data that used to exist in FBO.gov. And we have things in that domain like opportunities and various other things that you can do. We also have a domain for assistance data, and that's where the old CFDA data went. That's the assistance listings. Then we have functions like reporting, and the entity reporting domain is important because that is where the entity reporting function is where your roles are going to reside. So the entity reporting domain is where those roles are going to go, and that's why you need to kind of know that. On the next slide, we also use a term frequently called entities. Now, being an FSRS user, you probably know that entities are businesses, organizations, or individuals that apply for grants and loans or try to bid and get contracts from the government. In FSRS, I think they were called either contractors or awardees. Entities have to register in SAM in order to be able to apply for these grants or loans or to bid on the contracts. So registering is when the entities, the businesses, put their information into SAM. Part of that registration process does include validation, and that's how they get their UEI or their unique entity ID. So this all will tie together in just a moment. The next concept that we want to mention is entity hierarchies. And basically, a hierarchy is a type of parent-child relationship between corporations. So if you have a corporation that has multiple subsidiaries, the subsidiaries may be separate legal entities, but they are part of the hierarchy for the parent company, and they can all have their own UEIs, and that is perfectly fine. And that is determined actually when they register and when they're validated. So you don't have to worry about setting this up. But the reason we mention it is that there are, whoops, we okay, team?
All good, keep going.
Okay. The reason that we're introducing you to the hierarchy concept is because it does affect how your roles are applied. So other examples of hierarchies are universities and academic departments, or state governments and their departments and offices, but we see it a lot with major corporations and their subsidiaries or remote offices. If you're an individual or an independent business, you don't need to worry about the hierarchy at all. Okay, next slide. Now, when you sign in, both at FSRS or at SAM, you're using a service that we subscribe to. It's called login.gov. And the purpose of login.gov is to make sure that when you sign in, you are really you. And to that effect, you're going to have not only a password, but multi-factor authentication. And login.gov lets you basically access the sites that it knows that you have a profile for. But just a note that any information that you put in SAM related to either you as an individual or your entity, it is not part of login.gov. That is part of your profile on our systems. And now for the fun stuff. Roles and permissions. Think of a role as a set of permissions. These permissions are assigned to your SAM.gov account, and they give you access to types of data, and they allow you to perform tasks for an entity. So we categorize our roles by domain, and the roles apply to the entity to let you do work within that domain. So if you have the role that allows you to respond to interested vendors lists, for example, there's a specific role that allows you to do that. And it is for your entity, and it applies to the contract opportunities domain. So as far as subawards go, if you make a subaward report for a single contractor, you will have one role in the entity reporting domain that ties to that contractor. If you report for multiple contractors, you're going to have one role still in that entity reporting domain, but you're going to have that tied to each of your prime contractors. And all of these roles are going to tie to your single SAM account. It doesn't matter how many entities you work with. When it comes to the subaward capability, the two roles that you need to care about in the entity reporting domain are the administrator role and the data entry role. Those are the two roles that are going to allow you to edit, create, delete subaward reports. The only difference between those two roles is that the administrator role will also let you manage roles and permissions in this domain for other users at your entity. So the administrator is the one who says that you get to do this, and they give you the data entry role, and they give you the permission that's specific to the subawards. And I know that was a lot, so I'll give it a minute before we go to the next slide. Okay, Jason. So when we mentioned that roles were made up of permissions, the permission itself is a set of tasks that you can perform for an entity when it's enabled. So whenever your entity administrators are managing your roles, they're looking at these individual permissions to determine what you are going to be allowed to do. Some permissions are always turned on for a specific role. Others are editable, and that's a kind of granular level of control that we provide the entities. Now, it should be noted that the subaward permission, the subaward reporting permission, it is a specific permission, and it does need to be enabled in order for you to do updates, create, delete, any of the change functions related to subaward reporting. Yeah, that permission specifically allows, I don't know how big the slide is for you, but it does allow you to view, create, edit, and delete if it is in a draft status. And if it is a submitted subaward, then you're allowed to edit or delete. And again, this is just for the entities that you have the permission for. So back to the concept of the hierarchies. For those of you in large organizations, this is what's going to matter for you. If your entity is part of a hierarchy, then all you need is the role at the highest level that you're responsible for. So for example, if you're going to be doing the subaward reporting for all of your company, including the subsidiaries and remote offices and divisions, you don't have to have a role at every single UEI or every single entity in order to be able to do the work that you need to do. With a hierarchy, You can just have the role at the very top at company ABC, and you'll be able to view, create, edit, all of the fun stuff, all the way down throughout the corporation as it's displayed in your hierarchy. If your admin gives you access, let's say to the West Division, you'll be able to function within submitting for the West Division, also down to branches A and B. And then if your role is just assigned to branch A or branch B, then that is all that you can do. So the roles flow from the top down. And if you are not part of a hierarchy, then and you have many entities in SAM, that is fine. You can still have it. This is just one of the benefits of being in SAM is taking advantage of this entity structure to manage your roles. Okay, next up, please, Jason. Oh, I'm sorry. I went ahead of you. That's the slide I was just referring to with having to do with company ABC. Okay, so now what we're going to do is talk about how you take your existing functionality and your roles and your permissions from FSRS and bring it to SAM. After February 3rd, we are going to set up a tool to help make this whole process really, really easy for you. And this is the meat of what we're going to talk about today. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. In order for you in SAM to be able to work with the subaward, to do subaward reporting, you're going to have a SAM.gov account, which is your individual SAM.gov account for you. You're going to need to have one of the two roles that we talked about, entity data entry or administrator, for the entity reporting domain for the entities. And then if you have just the data entry role, we need to make sure that you have the subaward reporting permission, and we will show you how to check that as well. So these are the three things that you need to basically check the box on before FSRS is retired. And this will ensure, having this set up in advance will ensure that your ability to work is not interrupted when we do retire the legacy system. Okay, next slide, please. If you already have the entity reporting administrator role, then there is nothing you need to do for yourself. You are golden, you are good to go. You can, and this applies to everybody actually, if you go to SAM.gov in your workspace and select roles, and then I think it pops right up where you can review them. Basically, you can see what roles you have and what entities they are associated with. And this is part of the three things that you need to check off, right, on your little checklist. So first thing you want to do is after February 3rd, when you log in, you're going to want to check here and make sure that you've got the correct role for you to be able to make the subaward reports. And as an entity reporting administrator, no additional manipulation is needed. You are good to go. Okay, next slide, please. So for anyone else who is not an administrator for the domain, assuming that you're going to have the data entry role, again, it needs to be for the entities you're reporting for. And you're going to need to check for the special permission. We've got a few different potential use cases, right, for the folks who are not admins. So you could have a role in SAM, and you can already have the data entry role in the reporting domain. You could have an account in SAM and have roles in other domains, but not our entity reporting domain. You might have an account in SAM and have no roles. And you may not even have a SAM account at all. So what we wanted to do was basically provide everybody with a really easy way to make sure that they got what they needed from FSRS. And what we're doing is we are going to be setting up a transition page. That transition page will be on SAM.gov, and it is going to walk you through what you need to do. It'll help you create the account if you don't have one. It'll help you identify the entities that you report against for subaward reporting, pulling that information out of FSRS. You'll have the opportunity to find other entities if you need, and then it will handle the role request for you for all of those entities. So next slide. The transition page is going to be launched February 3rd, and it will stay up until the day we retire FSRS.gov. This is a temporary page, as noted, and it's a one and done. It's going to allow you to come in and update your, kind of connect your registrations between the two systems one time only. And after that one time, I believe you won't see the page again. And if there are any issues, we'll be here to help you make sure that you've got the roles that you need. Remember, you just have to have the one SAM account that has the role and the permission. You will not need to worry about your roles again for subaward reporting after that. This page is designed to handle all of the different use cases that we provided. Keep in mind that no change is going to happen on FSRS.gov. You can go and do this February 3rd, but you're still going to need to go to FSRS and do your reporting there. And but there's not going to be any changes there. This is just bringing SAM up to speed. And it does not impact your FSRS data. The data migration is going to take place a little bit later. So we are going to be bringing over, by the way, only the reports that are in submitted status, and we'll be providing more information as that gets closer. If for some reason the migration page doesn't work for you, then the normal process applies, which is that the administrator for the entity reporting domain will be the one who will assign the role and permissions for you. We're just trying to take some of the burden off of them with the introduction of this new capability. So, how does the page work? It's all automagic. You'll sign into SAM. If you need to create an account, it will show you how. Then it's going to detect any entities that you normally report on in FSRS. You select the entities that you want to report on. Once we move into SAM, you'll be able to search for additional entities and then request the roles. If you are creating a brand new SAM.gov account, it's important to notice that you're going to have a set of terms of use that you are required to sign. And then once that's done, you'll be setting up your user profile. And then after that happens, then that's when we go talk to FSRS and get all the entity information for the work you do over there. Again, the transition page, it's a one and done. Next slide. The majority of the requests that are created from this subaward transition page are going to be automatically approved, again, in the interest of removing burden from the entity administrators. However, if you are an entity administrator and you receive a role request for the data entry role, you are going to need to approve that request and also check the box for the subaward reporting permission. So after February 3rd, entity administrators, keep an eye on your role requests and notifications, because those will be the ones that the transition didn't successfully complete for. Next slide. There are some instances where there may not be an entity administrator. for your organization. So if you go through the transition and you get the success notice that the role request was sent, and you're in a position where the role hasn't been approved, you need to go to your administrator. If you can't find your administrator, or you find that they're no longer with the company, then we're going to need you to call the FSD, and we will help you get an active administrator attached back to that entity so that roles can be maintained going forward. Let's see here. And I like this slide in case you wondered. The FSRS transition page for SAM will pop up beginning February 3rd. Once FSRS is retired, again, the transition page will no longer be available, and you'll be able to use the normal process. Nothing's going to happen as far as your account on FSRS. What we're doing in SAM will have no impact at FSRS, and you do need to keep logging in and reporting there in order to stay compliant. And this transition, the transition page for your role is not going to impact any FSRS.gov data. And again, no matter how many entities you work with in FSRS, you'll have access to all of them through SAM in one SAM.gov account. Okay, so I know this has been a lot, and you will be getting the slides afterwards, but the last thing I want to talk to you about is how to get additional help. If you're running into issues either with the transition or getting your roles or permissions, we've got help for you. The next slide, please. As most of you know, the support system for SAM.gov and for the rest of the IAE systems is the Federal Service Desk, and that will continue after this transition takes place. We have here the slide with the hours of operation and the numbers, the phone numbers. If you go to FSD.gov, for those of you who are not familiar, you are able to do a live chat, or you can just use the create an incident button, and it'll open its ticket, and you can just dump all your information in there. But there are multiple ways to reach out for that help. And I also want to point out that FSD.gov is where we also house our knowledge articles and videos. So you would be able to do a search. It's like a Google bar on FSD.gov's main page. And using that search, you can find knowledge articles and videos, and just they're the Google search that they use, the Google-like search that they use is really good, and it's really good at pulling forward the things that you're actually looking for. On the next slide, this is a shameless plug that I always do. And if you want to get early preview of what this is going to look like, and how it's going to look, and what the new universe is going to be, you want to dip your toe in the water. The best way to do that is to participate in our user acceptance testing. Basically, what we do is we get you set up in our test environment with the right roles and everything that you need. And we provide all the instructions to help you go through the functions to make sure that they are behaving as expected. You can sign up by clicking the link here to our form. The form will ask you to provide your areas of interest specific to FSRS, and then we will send you your testing instructions. And as of now, testing is scheduled to run through mid-February. We may extend that if there is a demand for people who just want to come in and see. The testing results have been really, really good so far, so we're all very optimistic. The other thing that we want to offer is that if you have questions or concerns about the transition, or you have any feedback about how we can improve the experience for you, you can email us at subawardreporting@gsa.gov. That is where we are taking the type of feedback related specifically to the transition itself. And the last slide. In addition to the upcoming training, we are also doing what we're calling open help sessions. And basically, it's a very casual ask me anything kind of environment. It is going to be happening every other Friday, and we're going to be extending it beyond March, especially based on need. And it is not formal. We're not going to have any presentations. If we have any updates to provide you, we will share them. And other than that, if you have questions or you're having a specific issue with what you're trying to do, we're more than happy to help you with that. The one ask that we have is that the space is limited because of the one-on-one nature. It's one thing when I'm talking 1 to thousands, but if we're going to be talking and answering individual questions, we need to keep the sessions a little smaller. So if you do sign up for the open sessions and you decide you're not going to come, please cancel your registration so somebody else can join in. And on the main slide, we had a link to what we call our Interact page. And if you go to our Interact page and join, anytime we post a blog or have any updates, you will get it in an email. Otherwise, we do recommend you check our blog frequently, and we will be posting more about reporting updates, other training sessions, and all information related to the transition itself. We'll be posting there for sure. And with that, I am happy to start taking questions if my team has got any for us. It looks like there's a lot of questions in the Q&A pod. Ivana, are there some questions that you think would be beneficial to the whole group?
Sure. There are a lot of questions. Okay, I will start with the first one. My understanding is that if a subaward total exceeds 30K, we report that subaward once. So we don't need to re-report every time a payment exceeds 30K. Is that right? And we only need to report specific subawards, not just any payments to entities exceeding 30K.
I'm going to turn that over to our project manager, Adam Stancifer.
Hey, Salome, can you hear me?
Yep, hear you great. Thank you.
Okay, so in SAM.gov, you were required to report something that's over $30,000. We're not having anything that's stopping you from reporting something that's under $30,000. That being said, once you've created a subaward report for a given subaward, as in I'm reporting a record that is a subaward or subcontract or subaward between the prime contractor and the subcontractor, you will need to maintain that specific record. So you don't need to create new records on top of that. If something materially changes for that subaward, you can go and make edits to the existing subaward report that you had previously created. And that also does not mean you need to do it on a monthly basis. Like if there is a given month where nothing changed on that subaward report, or multiple months where nothing changed as part of that, subcontract or subaward agreement between the prime and the sub, you do not need to come in and update that record. At the next time that something materially changes, like you awarded more money, or maybe you had to change something about the agreement itself and it needs to be reflected in that subaward report, you can go and update that existing report that you had already created. You do not have to create a brand new report for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. I hope that addressed the question. Ivana, do you have another?
Okay. We have a question. If I already have a SAM.gov account with data entry role and am currently subaward reporting in FSRS, are there any steps I would need to take at this time?
The only step I would recommend is when you look at your role and you see the entity reporting domain and you see that you have the data entry role, if you click on that, you should be able to view the permissions, and you want to make sure that the permission has a check in it for subaward reporting. If you don't see it, when the transition page goes up, you can go ahead and let it do the voodoo for you. Or, or you can have it enabled now if you know who your administrator is. The choice is yours. We are trying to encourage folks to go ahead and, wait for, the thing is coming out, I think, in 2 weeks. February 3rd is the date it's going to go live. So the best bet is for you to wait and let the tool do it for you. We're just giving you the soup to nuts right now, so you know what to expect, and you can make your decisions and know what to do if for some reason your roles are not brought over as expected. Next.
Okay, and we have a lot of related questions, but I think it might be good just to make sure everyone's getting it. So the next one is around roles also. If someone has multiple grants being monitored by various people, but within the same agency, will anyone with data entry status be able to see, access reporting for all of the grants, or can it be limited to specific person for specific grant reporting?
Adam, how granular are the controls here?
So as of the implementation that's going to be going in later this spring. So the way it works is any user that has a data entry role for that specific UEI will be able to work with any prime award that was awarded to that UEI. So let's say that prime award, let's say that UEI had 10 prime awards, and I assign 2 or 3 users to have roles to work with that UEI. All of those users that I assign that role would be able to work with all of those prime awards. You no longer need to select individual awards to be in your work list. And therefore, if for some reason one employee or, had to go on vacation or had to go on leave or had to, left the company or whatever, you would no longer need to reach out to help desk to have them relinquish control of that. So it should be more easy to collaborate across all of the people. We do not have anything in place as far as the initial release that would allow you to cut off users from being able to access subsets of awards. If you have roles with that UEI, you will be able to work with that UEI's prime awards.
These are some great questions.
I am scrolling through and it's moving on me. Sorry. Okay. Another role related. Do we need to have admin role and data entry role for each award, or only one for admin and data entry role?
It's going to be either admin or data entry, but you're going to need to have that for each entity that you're reporting on. So if one entity has multiple, and Adam, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the role is tied to the UEI, and once you're with that UEI for that entity, it's anything that is active for that entity. Adam, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We have another question. If I assign a user in SAM.gov with the subaward reporting role before February 3rd, do I still need to request the transition from SAM.gov FSRS?
Nope. How you choose to manage this is entirely up to you. We are providing you with the information of what's going to be needed for when this goes live. And if you choose to wait for the tool and let the tool take care of it, you are welcome to. If you want to go in and figure out, if you're an administrator and you want to go in and assign for the people who you want to be able to do this work, that is entirely your call. How entities manage their users is their business. We're just wanting to let you know what you need for when this goes live.
Okay, and then there is a question about the tool and when they will become aware of it. The question is, will the transition page that we mentioned pop up on SAM.gov or FSRS.gov? How will
It will
they
be on
know?
It'll be on SAM.gov. Adam, will there be a link on the homepage of SAM, or how do we get them to the page where they could do the transfer?
So to get to that role migration page, you would go to that transition page. And then once you hit the login button from that transition page, that would take you through the steps to migrate whatever roles you had in FSRS into whatever account you logged into with SAM.
So we'll need to give them the direct URL, or can they navigate to it from the workspace or the homepage?
We have that slide. If Jason wants to go back, it's correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, it's sam.gov/FSRS.
That's what it will be, yes.
Awesome.
And just to note, if you don't log in through the link in that specific URL, it will not trigger that role migration page. That would just let you log into SAM normally. So you should do it through that URL.
There you go. Okay. Another question, I believe you touched on this, but how can they ask, how can I find out who in my company is the administrator? And a follow on to that from another one, which is a good question, is can you have more than one person be the administrator to set up roles?
Yes, yes, yes. Again, how an entity manages its staffing and its control over the parts of SAM that it uses are its own business. But many of you may be familiar with a process for entity registration where there's notarized letters and all of this stuff because somebody retires and they never appointed another administrator for SAM. It is going to be a similar situation here. If you cannot find out within your organization who is administering SAM for you guys, then we do have a path that we can work through. It's going to be a little manual. It may take a hot minute, but that workflow is initiated through the FSD. So if you're not able to find out who your admin is, you'll open an FSD ticket, and then my staff will be intervening to help either connect you with the active administrator or set you on the process to replace the administrator so that the updates can be made. Which is another good reason we're starting early.
Okay. Okay, we have this question. We receive federal awards and have been reporting subawardees in FSRS. What will happen to all the subawardees and subcontracts already entered in FSRS? Will we need to re-enter them in SAM.gov?
No, we are going to do a data transfer. It will apply to any record in FSRS that is in a submit status. If it is still in draft, it is not going to come over.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Adam.
the only thing I would add there is that anything in reopen status we will be pulling over as well. So anything that is submitted or in reopen status, we will be pulling into SAM. We will be transferring it from FSRS to SAM. Anything that is just in draft status, as in you've created it but you've never submitted it, we are not moving those to SAM.
Okay, next.
Okay. If a past employee was handling reporting in FSRS under their account, how will that information be transferred over to SAM.gov for the current person handling the reporting?
Adam, I'm going to defer to you again.
Okay, so FSRS today requires you to add something to your own personal work list. And if somebody was to leave or do anything like that, then there would be no way for someone to work with that. Since SAM is not doing that, SAM is just basing it off of the UEI that you have a role with, then anybody with that data entry or administrator role with that UEI for the entity reporting domain will be able to work with those subaward reports, those prime contracts. So if someone else created something in FSRS and we migrated it into SAM, if you have a role to do data entry, either, again, the administrator or the data entry role, you will be able to see those reports. You can make edits to those reports. You can create new reports.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, and I think this was just answered, but stated a different way. Will the data migrate to the institution entity or to the account registered in FSRS.gov?
So that would
Adam?
be associated with the entity itself. It's not the data is tied to the entity, not the individual user who created the record.
Okay, can I have permission for reporting for two institutions having their own UEIs without having to create two different emails? I currently
Add-
submit reporting for two sister institutions that have their own UEIs.
Absolutely. You're going to have one account in SAM. And what you do is when we start assigning roles to that account, you're going to have the role in the entity reporting domain for data entry. At one UEI, you can add another UEI. You can add as many UEIs. You can put in as many UEIs or entities as you want to do, but you got to make sure that they all have the role so that you can see them.
Okay, it's a slightly different one. So if we find that duplicates were entered, will we be able to delete once the migration occurs?
Yes, you can. And in fact, we are making that a much more simple process in SAM. As some of you are probably painfully aware, in FSRS, to delete a record, you need to reach out to the help desk, and then they need to talk amongst themselves. And then eventually it gets deleted between the two places, but it could take, up to a couple weeks to get that done. SAM will have a button that will allow you to delete it from the actual screen, and it will be communicated to USA Spending, and it will be updated within 24 hours.
Excellent. Lots of benefits to the transition. And keep in mind, we're going to have more sessions like this. We're going to do another role session about a week or two after February 3rd in case additional questions pop up. But I want everyone to rest assured we've got some time to get all of this set up for you and get everything functional before we take FSRS away. So we're starting early. We just, I don't want anyone to panic or think this is something you need to jump on immediately. If you want to wait till the 3rd and use the tool, by all means. But otherwise, we are here to help.
Okay. I think we do have a few more minutes. When transferring the data in submitted status, will you transfer all historical submissions? Will you go back 10 years? Do we know how far back it will go?
So we will be migrating all records from FSRS to SAM. So it is not time bound. If it is a submitted record or a reopened record, we are moving them from FSRS to SAM.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam.
Can we edit reports previously submitted through FSRS in the SAM.gov system? So the historical records, can they be edited?
I believe that is positive. I believe that you can do that once the data is moved. If as long as you have the role, you can edit submitted records. Right, Adam?
That is correct. And you can also work with reopened records that moved over reopened.
Okay. A lot of them have been answered already.
Awesome. We've got about 10 minutes left. Do we just want to ask if anyone wants to raise their hand? Because we can take probably 2 or 3 more questions in the time we have remaining.
Okay. I do have we do have some more in here.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
trying to find the not duplicate ones. It takes me a bit, sorry.
Gotcha.
Okay,
No,
well,
I'm
we
sure there were
have
a lot.
one. They noticed on the permission screen that the data entry roles allows you to delete. Will administrators be notified when deletions happen?
Right now, there is no mechanism to alert people up the personnel chain if something has been deleted. The understanding is that if someone is being assigned a role for data entry, they will be responsible for and trusted by their administrators to be able to do the actions that they are assigning them to do in the system.
Let's see, it just moved on me. I had a good one. I cannot find it, but it had to do with government agencies. So they're interested in knowing if there's going to be a separate training for government, but perhaps we could touch on what will be different for government and do they have to do anything different?
Great question. So if you are a federal employee and you have a federal government profile associated with your .gov email, like I'm GSA.gov or, your agency.gov, federal users automatically have the role and permission they need to do any searching that is necessary. Would you add anything to that, Adam?
No, that's accurate for federal. For like state government users, since they're classified as non-federal users in the system, they would log in just like any other non-federal entity would log in and do the same things like you pointed out in the set of slides that we just presented.
Great. Thanks, Adam.
Okay. Will the SAM system automatically track the date when specific subawards are added to a prime report? For example, confirm the subaward was reported on time. FSRS doesn't automatically track this, so we're having to save their confirmation of the date of submittal ourselves.
So a couple of things for this. So one, the subaward reports in SAM.gov are going to be, it's going to be one record is going to exist per subawardee. So like if I had a prime contract that had, I don't know, 5 subawards that I awarded to different entities, I would report 5 different records. And we're also no longer requiring the user to manually enter the report month and year. Whenever you create the report and submit the report, we will be saving when that actual record is submitted, and that will be saved as part of the record. So all that the government should have to do if they're doing, analytics for this kind of a thing is they would need to look at when the record was submitted and compare that to the actual award date for the subaward itself. As of the initial release, we don't have anything that would, notify a government employee if what you're submitting is, past the month time frame from where the subaward itself was awarded. That is a request that has come from various CCB members from our our agency stakeholders, but as part of the initial release, that isn't included in the content.
Okay, and then since we only have a couple minutes left, I want to end. I think we should end on 2 questions that go back to the roles, and will help clarify 2 things. Once is, can they limit the data entry role for the sub award reporting? So again, like maybe a reiteration of the permission that they also need with the role.
No, there is a single permission in the entity reporting domain related to subawards, and it's binary. It's either on or off. If it's on, you can create, delete, anything along those lines. It was an earlier slide where we broke out the functions. You can do some things to submitted awards. I believe that was edit or delete, and then you can also create and edit drafts as well. But yeah, it doesn't get any more granular than that. It's either on or off.
Okay, and in terms of next steps, can I submit the FSD ticket to obtain administrator status now, or should I wait until February 3rd?
So I would recommend waiting till the 3rd and seeing how the transition goes for you. If you get everything you need, then you're good to go. If you are not getting, if your role ends up needing to go for approval and you don't get a response, then definitely come to us and we'll help figure out what's happening at your entity.
Do we have time for one more? I think I have a hard one.
Uh-oh. Get ready,
Well,
Adam.
if we can't answer, we will find out, but it's a different one.
Okay.
Many tribal nations have their file hidden. If we award to a tribal nation, is it required to report on entities that are hidden? This might be an Adam question.
That's more of a policy. Adam, do you know, or is this one we need to research and respond back?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but for the interest of as many people are here, I think we should make sure that the answer is accurate and correct. So let's take that offline.
Okay. And Jessica, you saw that email. Email us at subawardreporting@gsa.gov, and we'll be sure to get you the specific answers that you need for your situation. Okay.
All right. I would like to thank you all for taking the time this afternoon to spend with us and get the foundation of how the roles work in SAM and how you're going to be impacted by the upcoming changes. Keep an eye on our Interact page because we will be announcing additional sessions then. Those sessions will be taking place after the transition page launches. I believe that that's the end of our program, and I wish all of you a fantastic week.